So understanding this structure in Revelation is bound to help us in our interpretation. Another important structural element to understand about Revelation is that parts of Revelation point forward and backward. Scholars use a big word for this. It's duo-directionality. Can you say that fast 5 times? Can anyone? Duo-directionality. You see, the climax of one section of Revelation often serves as the introduction to the next section. And John drops hints of what the next passage means before you ever even get to it. Throughout the text of Revelation are embedded keys to unlocking the symbols. Take, for example, Revelation 3:21. This is the end, the climax to the letters to the 7 churches. But it is also a complete introduction to the 7 seals that comes a few chapters later, describing the experiences of God's people from the cross to the second coming. That is duo-directionality. Also, in Revelation 6, 9, and 10, which is the end, the climax to the 5th seal, the question the saints ask is, how long, Lord, are you avenging until you avenge our blood? That question is answered later in Revelation 8:13. Woe, woe to those who live on the earth. The trumpets are God's judgments on the wicked that the saints were pleading for in chapter 6. That's duo-directionality. And a particularly important example of duo-directionality is Revelation 12:17, which we're going to be looking at in detail later. This verse ends the section of the 6th trumpet, but it also serves as the beginning of the final battle of Earth's history. Okay, so we've looked at chiasm and duo-directionality. Now, as we mentioned before, to understand Revelation, we have to understand the Old Testament background of the book. The authors of the New Testament, including John, had been immersed, absolutely saturated in the Old Testament from childhood. Remember, they lived in a theocracy. Their religion and their culture were one and the same. Life revolved around religion. So the stories they grew up with were not Mother Goose and fairy tales. Their stories were David and Goliath, Moses and Elijah. This was their lore. So it makes sense that New Testament authors pulled from their history as they wrote. And Revelation is absolutely saturated with that Old Testament imagery. There are 4 ways that New Testament authors in general referenced the Old Testament. They often used citation, where they actually state the name of the person they're quoting. John didn't do any of that. New Testament writers also used quotation, where they didn't state who said it, but they gave the quote enough that we know who said it. John didn't do that either. Another way that New Testament writers used the Old Testament was echo, which was just merely using a word here or a phrase there from the Old Testament, but simply because it was part of their language, part of their vocabulary. They weren't doing it for any particular reason to draw our thoughts to any particular part of the Old Testament. The final way that New Testament writers refer to the Old Testament is by allusion. Allusion is when the author uses a word or a phrase or a name specifically for the purpose that the reader or the hearer will recall a particular story in a passage of the Old Testament. For example, here in America anyway, I can say the word Enron. And for you and I, that word is loaded with meaning because Enron was in the news a while back. I don't have to explain myself. You already know. Well, in the same way, John said Babylon. And for his people, the word was loaded with meaning. He didn't have to explain himself because they knew. So here, in fact, let me do a quick experiment. I'm going to say a bunch of words to see if you can understand me. Ready? 3 little bears, 3 little pigs, Cinderella, Pinocchio, Rapunzel, Rip Van Winkle, Sleeping Beauty, Humpty Dumpty, Jack and Jill, Ugly Duckling, Hansel and Gretel, Little Red Riding Hood. Anybody have any idea what I'm talking about? Yeah, of course you do. Why? It's because we have a common background. We grew up with the same stories. Now, how long would it take me to tell you all of those stories if we started doing that right now? An hour or better. But I brought them to your mind, all of them to your mind, in just a few seconds. I didn't need to tell you the story because you already knew it. All I had to do was allude to it, using a word or a phrase that you knew already. So if I were to say a phrase like, what big ears you have, you instantly have in your mind the entire context of the story that we call what? Yes, Little Red Riding Hood. Now, what if I went to the Amazon jungle And I said to a tribal chief there, in his own language, "What big ears you have." Would he know what I said if I said it in his language? Well, yes, he would, and no, he wouldn't. He would understand the meaning of my words, but he would not understand my meaning, if you get my meaning.